All right, and we are live. Welcome, everybody. We are in the buff tonight talking about Survivor. And I'm Zach. This is my co host, Rob. Um, what we wanted to do is kind of create a podcast by naturists, for naturists, talking about regular things, just because naturists are regular people. Um, and so that's kind of um, we wanted to kind of create another venue, another avenue to try to normalize nudity in the human body, because these are taboos that don't always make sense necessarily. Which is how we came up with kind of our slogan. Um, for around here for our videos, clothing is always optional. Nudity is never required. So how you doing tonight, Rob?
I'm great, thanks.
All right. So tell us.
I've been saying I'm tremendous. It's my favorite new.
You're tremendous. Tremendous.
After one of my favorite political people right now.
I'm not even gonna go there. Tremendous. I've been using fantastic a lot lately, just mostly because of the Ninth Doctor. So it's a Doctor Who reference for all of you Whovians out there who may or may not be watching.
I'm not.
To start out, Rob, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and anything that the viewers out there might need to know.
Hey, I'm Rob. I'm in Indiana, and I don't know. I've watched Survivor since it started.
Okay.
I hosted in my dorm room. I hosted parties for my friends to come over and watch like the second season. I think it was the second season, technically. It was in 2000 when it started. So
that sounds like something I would do, and I would still do today.
Yeah. I was the only person. I was the only person who had a TV, which is why it ended up coming over.
That makes it convenient because then you can kind of control and say, "Hey, this is what we're watching tonight."
That was back in the day when I had to VHS tape it.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Horrible memories. Thank God for DVR. Okay, so those of you who don't know me, I'm Zach. You can follow me at Dakota Zulu on Twitter. The big elephant in the room before we get to Survivor, Rob, we're both naked.
So.
Exactly. I touched on it a little bit just a couple minutes ago. You want to tell us a little bit about naturism and what it means to you?
Sure. I don't know that it's always a weird thing to talk about. But it's just something kind of normal.
All right. I'll tell you, for me, I kind of got involved a few years ago. Found an event online for the Skinny Dip World Record down at Haulover Beach in Miami. And for the past, for the years preceding, it had kind of been a bucket list item for me. Like, I want to go someplace that's clothing optional, and I want to just experience that. Because I just thought it was kind of different, and it was kind of out of my comfort zone. So I wanted to try something different, try something new. And so I went and I loved it, and I got involved with other young naturists, and I can't stop talking about it.
One of my first things that I ever was exposed was a show on TV, the Buying Naked show, or
Buying Naked. I remember that show. That came on like
it was a couple years ago.
That came on just like one season.
Yeah, it was like one season or something.
Yeah, the premise, for those of you who don't know, the premise of the show is kind of just one of those property buying shows.
Yeah, it's
that
basically
they're
like
buying property in a nature's community.
Yeah.
Here in Florida. So like it, a few years ago, 2013 was a big year for nudity, because that's when Buying Naked, Naked and Afraid, and Dating Naked, they all pretty much came out at the same time.
Yeah, they were all about the same time.
Two of those shows are still on, so that tells you something, I think. Naked and Afraid is a great show. Dating Naked, I haven't watched.
I've watched some of it, but
I heard there was like one couple that actually did end up.
Yeah, they got married.
They got married, and they didn't just get married. They got married in the nude because they loved it so much. They converted on TV. Total
hippies, yeah.
So that's great for naturism. That really is great. So let's get into some Survivor. That's kind of why we're here. So you said you've watched since the first season. I've pretty much been watching about the same. It's a little different circumstances. I have watched every season at least twice. I want to say.
You're a total super fan.
I am the super fan.
You even have the buff on.
We need to work on that. This is in the buff. So.
Well, and you have on your appropriate team for this season, so I should get the purple one.
Yeah. Well, the Vanua tribe, they did have a really big episode, and we're coming to that. So just to continue with the background. What's your favorite season? Who are your favorite players, Rob? What stands out?
I remember Colby. Was he second or third season?
That was second season when he made his debut.
Because I thought the yellow Azteca was a really cool car.
Oh, so did I. That was my car back in the day. I remember the Aztecs, and I was
the Aztec, yeah, whatever it's called.
I wanted one of those cars.
No, the other thing that stands out to me, and I was trying to look it up today because I'm not a super fan and I forget all this stuff. It was like the Mayan one. I don't know if they were in Guatemala or somewhere.
They were in Guatemala one year, and that's kind of the forgotten season. So I'm glad to see that you remember this one.
But there was a girl, and she they starved, literally starved. And she was super tough, but she got voted out close to the end, but she should have won. And they brought her back for another season, but they voted her out really early. She had sort of kinky curly hair.
I
can't remember.
I know exactly who you're talking about. That would be Stephanie LaGrossa.
Yeah, Stephanie.
Stephanie is a huge fan favorite. Not necessarily a favorite of mine. I'm not sure why, but
I don't remember that I liked her personally, but she was a badass.
She definitely is one of the strongest Survivor women of all time.
But she never won, I don't think.
She didn't win. She actually made her debut the season before Guatemala in Palau when Tom the Fireman won.
Okay.
And then she returned for Heroes and Villains, which was, as you stated, she got voted out fairly early.
Yeah. And I'm never a fan of when they come back. I sort of like brand new seasons much better myself.
I think they all have merits. I think that's just kind of how my opinion. I don't mind returning players. I think there are. I think that's another discussion for another time, probably.
Okay.
So let's
Your favorite?
my favorite season. Cambodia was awesome. If we want to talk more recent, um,
Cambodia last season?
Cambodia, no, Second Chance.
Oh, right.
Second Chance was fantastic. Um, let's see, more classic Survivor. I love Token Chains. Original JT, Steven, Coach, Tyson.
Yeah.
That was truly amazing to watch. Coach is a hilarious TV personality, to say the least.
Okay.
You are not having that at all. Let's see.
Well, I think I told you. Well, Rupert, was he from? Which season was he from? Because he's like
Rupert was very old school. He went. Rupert was on back in season 7.
Yeah. Well, he's my
Island when they did their first pirate theme, and he stole the shoes. He wore a dress. He found a snake and he named it Balboa. So yeah, Rupert is very old school, big fan favorite. I love Pearl Islands. Let's see. I'm actually a big fan of All Stars. Not everybody is. I enjoyed that season. I think the real strategy portion of the game really picked up in Vanuatu, season 9, the season after All Stars. That's when Chris won. For those of you who don't know, Chris really stepped up the strategy portion of the game. He kind of, from my perspective, he kind of invented the vote out the strongest first gameplay. He really changed Survivor as far as strategy goes.
Maybe, but I think one of the other big changes was, and I can't remember when it is, and you'll have to tell me who it was, but was it Russell or the guy who started finding all the hidden immunity idols before they gave any?
Yeah, Russell Hantz.
In recent history, that's changed the game the most. I think. Because
I
the second step off the boat or whatever the hell it is,
people are looking off for hidden immunity idols.
And already this season, for example.
Oh, definitely. Hidden immunity idols have become a huge part of the game.
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest changes recently. Or game changers. You might be right about the strategy portion.
But yeah, I think having hidden immunity idols around has kind of enforced the strategy part of the game. Before there were any hidden immunity idols, it was one person or one tribe wins immunity, and then everybody is vulnerable, and there's nothing you can do about it. Almost, you have to have this huge social game in order to flip a vote. Nowadays, you can kind of go out and change your own fate and talk and flip the vote on its head without numbers, which we've seen several times in the last couple of years. Kelly Wentworth voted out, negated a Survivor record 9 votes during the Second Chance season. So unfortunately for Savage, that's it. So let's get into some more, something a lot more recent. Last week was the first episode of season 33, Millennials versus Gen X. Yeah, I gotta say that the first impressions on from the first episode to the second episode, they've kind of I feel like they've kind of changed based on because they did have more time during the first episode and with the 90-minute premiere. Um, but what do you think, Rob? Who were some standouts from last week?
From the start, uh, let's see here. I kind of like the way it started out. Um, I like the premise to start with because I'm kind of in between generations, I feel. So the idea of Generation X and millennials, I was like, ooh, because I usually kind of think of myself more as a millennial. So when I realized I should be purple team, or I don't even feel
Yeah,
horrible.
and it's the line
Ollie
is
Oddly to something.
the line
Yeah.
between millennial and Gen X isn't as defined as Survivor with how you seem. I don't think.
Well,
Um,
they do have like
they put a definite like age barrier on there I think probably just because that's how old
to draw a
players
line,
are.
probably. Yeah.
Um, but I'm an 85 and I feel like I'm in between the two. Um, so
Yeah.
I'm even though they would have put me on the millennials if I was out there, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So obviously, I think on the millennial side, I initially thought, well, it's kind of hard to speak now, but I was like, ooh, Mari's a video game player. I was like, dude, she's really gonna rock it. Like the video game player, I have never seen her. I don't know her, but
Me
I
either.
was like,
But
oh, that could be really good. You know, I was thinking of like the poker player in Big Brother who like
um,
um,
I'm gonna say Vanessa.
yeah, Vanessa. I was like, oh, she could, if she's got that killer instinct to play like video games for a living, she could be like a real Vanessa. You know how Vanessa dominated that season.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, I it's hard to say like from no episodes, one episode, two episodes in, how far somebody's going to go just based on what they do. Especially because you don't know if they're going to tell other people what they do or if they're going to be truthful about their profession. Um,
I think though so far they have been pretty truthful this season.
it seems to be. It seems to be. So we don't. It's not always the case.
Yeah, but I think with the premise this year, there's less because
Less reason to hide.
they don't have like a um what was last season? Was he a football player or basketball player?
It was a
Ex-basketball.
basketball player.
Yeah, basketball player.
There's no Scott Pollard this season. So
They don't need to be this secretive.
there doesn't seem to be any real stunt casting this season. It looks like everybody's a genuine fan of the show, which is exciting too.
I mean, there's a few like scrawnier or nerds or typecast types, but
Right.
not like excessively so. Do you know what I mean? Like Cochran was so completely
Right, and I don't know about you. I'm a fan of Cochran.
yeah,
but
yeah. He was a great player.
but I saw Cochran got referenced in last night's episode a couple times.
He did. Well, what's that guy's name? I've got my cheat sheet here. The bald, scrawny one, David.
David, yeah. So I think the
Yeah,
quote was something along the lines of I'm more of a Cochran than an Aussie. Which was
yeah. Oh, Ozzy was a good player.
Ozzy was a good challenge player.
Yeah, comp.
His strategic mindset was questionable
Yeah, okay.
at
Fair,
best.
fair enough.
Um,
But yeah, and then the other really sort of typecast is Hannah.
right. It seems to be the new. Oh gosh,
She's totally a Natalie from Big Brother,
Natalie from.
who just won. Isn't that her name? I don't know. With the
Oh,
glasses.
no, Nicole.
Nicole. Sorry, Nicole.
Sorry. I've completely blocked out
horribly
Big Brother
with names.
18. It's
Oh.
so bad. I'm
That it was bad.
not even watching
Speaking of power couples,
over the top. No. Um, anyway, let's let's not bring up that monstrosity again.
okay, fair enough. But anyways, he's totally typecast though.
Oh yeah, the new
And they're really the only two.
the
like you
new
were saying.
the new
Because the rest
Survivor
of them-
archetype seems to be the nerdy quirky woman. They've had they had Shireen, and then Aubrey last season,
Right.
and now they've got Hannah, who I do have high hopes for. Because
We're not to episode 2 yet.
I'm yeah.
I don't know. I had
we'll
high hopes.
see.
I have high hopes for her too initially, but
Yeah, there were a lot of what happened last night is has thrown a lot of kind of question into strategy, thoughts, how well this season is going to go from a fan's perspective.
Well, going back to, I think episode 2 is much more interesting. Surprisingly, because
I agree.
episode 1 has been really like, oh my god, they evacuated them.
That was the big thing from episode 1. Is the storm.
Yeah,
they evacuated.
But it was kind of a nothing in the end, except for the millennials really got like a second chance because they would have really been up a river without a whatever paddle canoe.
Right.
And Justin told them to do something about it. But I can't say that the Gen Xers did all that much better either. Really. Like none of them, they were like, oh, maybe there's a storm coming.
Yeah, the millennial tribe has gotten. It seems like they've gotten a lot more airtime too. So we'll
in the defense of the millennials, I think they're more typecast in general. Like they're playing off of, oh, millennials only stare at computers all day. Oh, millennials this. Like, I think millennial is like the buzzword of the 2000 and whatever.
I'm going to be so tired of that word by the end of the season.
Well, I was already tired of it before the season started, I think. I mean, it's like all over media in lots of places. Millennials this. There are more millennials than boomers, blah, 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 blah.
I'll be honest. At the end of Co-Wrong last season, back in May, when they announced the title of it was Millennials versus Gen X, I had to go look up what that meant.
Oh, really?
I did. Those are terms that I'm, that in my everyday life, I was not, 100% familiar with. Like I had heard them, but I didn't really give them much credit just because these are words that I don't really care about. They don't mean anything to me. But now they mean a lot just because they're on my buff. So it's like, well, now I have to know what these words mean. So that was my my moment of honest stupidity.
Yeah, but we've already talked about it a little bit. because like when you're in between, you said you're 85, I'm 82.
Right.
So like there are some things like initially I was like, oh yeah, I'm kind of a millennial, or I mostly seem to embrace technology, and some of the, I do Twitter and all that stuff.
Right. And I think
You know what I mean? But now that I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of an X or two. Like I identify both ways a little bit.
that's the exact same thing. It's like I've been watching the show for a while to know I think to know how I would approach camp life on day 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, speaking of camp life, day one, I was just watching it before we started talking.
Okay.
If you're going to be on Survivor or any of these shows, Naked and Afraid or whatever, what is the first thing you would try to go out and learn before you go?
How to make fire.
And nobody ever does.
That there are a few who end up doing it, whether they've learned or they've
and leave it to
trained, but
leave it to the millennials to make fire without flint this season.
Yeah, Zeke is surprising me. I knew
was like, I don't know about him, but I think he could go a long way.
Yeah, I think he's gonna do well. I knew from the very first preview, I knew that Zeke was gonna be a big character. So we don't necessarily how far he's gonna go. But I think he could end up going pretty far. He could end up being fan favorite. He may end up being a villain. I don't know. But I think he's gonna at least be a big character this season.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that ends up playing out. But getting back to episode 2, okay? So
sure. Yeah, and it's always unfortunate because who was voted out? Rachel? Is that her name?
Rachel.
Yeah. You never really remember her.
You never really remember the first vote anyway.
I always feel badly about that.
And nobody wants to be the first person voted out.
No.
Unfortunately, it has to be somebody.
Yeah.
And it's always somebody that, probably could have done really well if they would have been if they made it past the first vote.
Thing about that vote, I think, is that they didn't vote out Brian. Is that his name? The scrawny bald guy.
David.
Sorry, they didn't. That's the only interesting thing about that.
This season is as far as David's
because he's totally paranoid. Like
he's reminding me a lot of Cochran. And I said that last week.
I don't think he's that smart.
And I mentioned that to family and friends, and they agreed to an extent, but they also said that he's not as likable as Cochran. And Cochran had some wit and some a little bit of likability to him. I think. I know not everybody's going to have the exact same opinions as me.
Yeah, but David's also, he just is like, he jumped off the boat playing.
Right.
in the game.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like he started out really well, aligned, getting himself hooked up with Chris and Brett. And then
he's one of the only few.
After the storm. The storm changed everything.
Yeah, well, they all got a second reboot, so to speak, because they all started out, and then they all left.
They had day one, and I feel like
I don't know what they did with them. Because did they just all stick him in the same room or the same place? Or like,
I
you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
then they'd already met each other.
Yeah,
So-
I can't say
knows
what happened.
But you know what I mean? Like it is kind of unprecedented.
It
'Cause they were
definitely
still
is.
like, at least some of them had to be together.
Yeah, and I can only assume that they sequestered them someplace
Probably just like
on
jury
production
house.
site. Maybe jury house. Yeah, I can only assume that you know they took them somewhere safe. That's what we know. So it'll be interesting to find out where exactly they went. I kind of got some people I should probably have asked already. So,
But anyway, I think that part of the gameplay, like with the reboot, is an interesting underlying to probably that first vote, or at least the initial.
yeah, who knows which way the vote could have gone without the storm, because it kind of came in and it
Well,
reset everything, and
about
everyone's
more. So if we start into episode 2, because the big thing is what's his name, Figgy
Biggie and Taylor
and Taylor, as he says, macking
macking.
or macking on each other.
That is not another term that I'm not real familiar with in my everyday use.
It's kind of like saying like it's kind of like ironically saying, you know, like a word for cool, like that was cool in the 80s, but now, you know what I mean? Like it's rad.
Yeah, I mean, it's rad. We should bring that back. It's so rad.
No, like I would probably say,
Yeah.
oh, they were.
Yeah, I would have said that too.
Okay.
And that's
But anyways,
that's the terminology that Probst used at Tribal Council when he asked them about it.
Oh, is that? I forgot that.
Yeah.
But my suspicion is that if they were sequestered together, that's why they may have ended up.
Do you
like,
think that
those sparks could have flied early or partially because of that, and made it more intense, so that it came out sooner than it would have otherwise.
So you're proposing that
You see what I mean?
Survivor doesn't have any qualms sequestering a man and woman together then?
Well, not that they couldn't have been together, but like they were all in the same place, so they had extra time to get to know each other.
Away from cameras.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas
Whereas if they were just playing in the game, they might have been focused on other things.
Interesting perspective. This isn't something that I'd considered.
Well, I hadn't either considered it necessarily either, but now that we're thinking about it, or
Now that we're talking about it, now we're analyzing it. It all makes sense. Yeah, it's a definite possibility, and I guess.
anyways, I don't like either of them particularly.
I'm not a huge fan of either of them right now.
It reminds me of high school, so I'm just like vote them off. Right.
Yeah, I would have been perfectly happy to see either one of them be voted out last night. I was shocked and surprised and a little hurt that Mari was voted out last night. I really liked her.
I thought Mari. I really had high hopes for Mari.
I feel like she got the short end of the stick on that one.
She did, and you know who gave it to her? In my opinion, Michelle did.
Right. Yeah. And interesting thing is that the day before episode 1, I tweeted out my preseason winner pick, and I ended up picking Michelle just kind of on a whim. And after one episode, I was like, man, I hate this pick. And now after 2 episodes, I'm like, man, I love this pick.
Really? You think? So no,
I just because it, changing, one person's vote right before tribal council and then going to tribal council, and in the middle of tribal council, convincing somebody else to change their vote just to swing a number around. It's, it doesn't happen very often. And when you can do that, it's kind of amazing. And so I think strategically, it showed a lot of potential.
Yeah.
So we will see.
I don't know. She's gonna have a hard, because she's the missionary, right?
That's right.
Because if she plays that aggressively, I think eventually she's going to be called out.
It could work against her, but if she's able to talk that,
she did it so calmly.
She flipped somebody's vote without a reason. She said, "We're voting for Mari," and Hannah said, "I need a reason." And she said, "I will tell you later."
But let's talk about Hannah. I thought Hannah, because Hannah's response was equally interesting, or Hannah was interesting. I thought she was like, "Well, why?" Like she wouldn't just do it.
She didn't want to just do it, and she needed.
Which I kind of respect, but she was also just being kind of stupid at tribal, don't you think? Like, because she obviously knew it wasn't her, so why not just go ahead and vote? Or like,
yeah, I don't know. Hannah got, really distracted, and so when Jeff Probst called on her, she was like, and she was all over the place. But it's tribal council's rough. It goes on forever, which is apparently how long Hannah took to vote.
Yeah. What the hell?
I've never.
One of the guys even went up to check on her. It's like, are you okay?
I don't know how long they were. It's impossible to say just because in the 5 minutes that we get on TV, how long she actually took to vote. But then eventually, Preps had to look around and check on her, like, is she okay? Because they could see that she hadn't voted yet.
Well, and she was all like head down, like crying.
Super awkward.
What else happened? Oh, the guy had a heart attack.
Almost. We don't know the extent of it. I'm not a medical person. I don't know the extent of what actually happened.
Typecast person.
Say that again.
He's kind of the other typecast person. Like he's the token old guy.
Old guy.
You know what I mean? Like there's always the.
No, I do know what you mean. Yeah.
Or whatever.
This is a much younger season than some of the others we've had.
Yeah, he's way younger.
He is probably one of the younger. Oldest players on a season.
The youngest older person. Paul.
Right, Paul. Another Floridian.
Who is he?
Yeah, he's from he's about as far south as you can get. Like Key West or something. But
so yeah, he really bounced back. Did you see him swimming?
He did. I was surprised.
Dude.
Like, oh my gosh, you just were down with, a possible heart attack, but you were cleared to play. So they let him play, and he swam. I was really surprised at how that played out.
Yeah, well, it's kind of nice though that the Gen X won because then it sort of balances out. At least the initial episodes. I think that's always a little. It seems to level the playing field a little bit.
I
Rather
agree.
than,
If it levels out the playing field if you vote out the right people.
okay, yeah, sure.
You know, sometimes because we've seen time and time again where one tribe goes to tribal council after tribal council after tribal council, and they keep voting out the quote unquote weakest player. Um,
Or the strongest.
sometimes
yeah,
sometimes the
usually.
strongest, but you know they vote out the tribe cancer, um, and you know they just keep losing when it's not necessary. It it's not necessarily um, physical strength that carries a tribe that wins immunity, but it's the right team chemistry that'll get you through um, a tribal council that'll or a challenge with the right level of morale. We saw that momentum shift in heroes versus villains. Heroes went to most of the first few tribal councils. And then they got down to the right core group of people, and that group made it to the merge without going to tribal council again. So it's not necessarily all the physical strength of a tribe, but the right level of morale, team chemistry, and the right people stepping up. You look skeptical.
No, I'm not. I think you're right. I think you're right. Or, yeah, it's a weird balance between all these things. What was the other thing?
David and Ken. Let's talk about David and Ken.
Okay, Ken's the model.
Ken's the model.
Who's the most confident, half naked one most of the time so far.
Surprising to me, I think, that he's a model because I don't think I learned that until
I thought that's what
today. Maybe.
Okay.
I may have put that in my video, my intro video, but I wasn't really paying attention. I just wrote it. No, but Ken and David somehow bonded.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was
because Ken was like, "Oh, I'm all an introvert or have a hard time opening up or something," right?
Right.
That's the premise.
That's what he said, and I was surprised that he said that.
Right? So,
and then David found the idol. David showed it to him. And then
I thought that was a weak move on David's part. To show him the idol.
I think David.
He could have told him.
David's still playing the paranoid game too, though. He's like, I need somebody to trust. I need somebody to trust. I need like latching on.
Yeah, but
to the first person. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we haven't talked much about Gen X though, because I think the two power players over there could be eventually Chris. I think he's the lawyer, sort of the redheaded guy, and Brett, like the two sort of, strong guy dudes, so to speak.
Yeah, and they've got. I think they complement each other, and I think they've got, a strong foursome with Sunday and Jessica.
All right.
They had that four at least that made a pretty good impression on me after episode 1. So I was, I don't dislike them. I'd like to see them work together because I think they work together well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they could go a long ways if that really gels together,
So
especially with those two guys. I think
yeah,
like working together because they could really start like calling the shots, and if they're like winning or like catching fish or whatever. Although, what's his name? Caught the octopus.
Ken.
Octopus Prime, right?
Octopus Prime. I love the Transformers reference. That was
Hashtag.
that was fantastic.
Yeah, although I kind of like Sunday too.
I do
just
like
because
Sunday.
it's a really odd name. And she's like, what, a Sunday school teacher or something?
She's yeah, that's almost exactly her job. So it's like that's kind of rare that you've got somebody living up to their name like that, almost in a literal sense. But yeah, that's a formidable foursome over there on Gen X, and um, I think next week we're getting some kind of twist.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how
I think they're going to mix them up early.
Mix them up early, like in not Second Chance.
Yeah, don't you think?
Are they going to Three Tribes?
I don't know about 3, but I think they're going to mix up like half of them. So put the Gen Xers with the millennials and see what happens. Because they can't leave them too long. It seems like too good of an experiment to see what would happen.
No, you're right. We don't usually have switch ups this early. It's usually
later. It's
usually 3 or 4 episodes in. So having if it happens next week, if they do a switch up, I would expect them to go to Three Tribes, and I don't know how they're going to mix that up. Because of how early they're doing it, they're at 18 right now. Both tribes have lost one player. It seems 3 tribes of 6 seems like it's the route to go.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Didn't work out. Did it work for the Second Chance season? We've seen this isn't a twist that we've seen before, that we haven't seen before. 2 tribes split into 3.
It could happen.
So it's not unprecedented. We don't know yet for sure what's going to happen. But if they're going to split into, if they're going to switch up, then we'd still be at, 2 tribes of 9.
Well, eventually, though, whether they switched up or not, or that's the surprise, like, eventually they are going to have to come together.
Oh, eventually, yes.
So,
eventually there will be a tribe shuffle. Any season.
On each side of the current down the divide, Xers versus millennials, there's obviously people who would gravitate one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So Zeke, for example, would totally probably go over to the Xer. He would totally do it.
Depending on numbers and depending on who ends up in his portion of the swap.
But he's an obvious choice to.
I agree with you. I always have to throw in that caveat.
Yeah,
that depends. It always depends. My father and my brother are both lawyers, and they've told me that the answer to every question is always it depends. But I agree with you.
Right. But on the other side, so Ken is really pretty. And even though who knows how old he is? Maybe it says.
He,
iPhone.
if I'm not
He's
mistaken,
33.
if I'm not mistaken, he's the youngest on that tribe.
Well, I was about to say he would be a likely candidate to go with the high school kids. What do they call Taylor and that three? Those sort of, the pretty, power.
The cool kids alliance.
Yeah, the cool kids, exactly.
There were a lot of Caramoan references for me at least after episode 1, because we had an orange tribe of 10 players with a cool kids alliance, and the other tribe had the Cochrane-esque paranoid person. But the cool kids alliances I don't like, because they form just based on how pretty everybody is. And that is not Survivor for me. That is the antithesis of, that's basically a clique. And I grew up not liking cliques, and not, and having cliques hate me. So there's that too. I was picked on in Boy Scouts of America. That wasn't fun.
I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, I don't even remember anything. And I was, I don't know, 12. And that was not a great, maybe younger. That wasn't a great experience. So I dropped out pretty quickly after that. So yeah, cliques are not a happy thing in my book. And so cool kids alliances need to go.
Well, we'll see. It was pretty incredible, though, that they ended up not voting her out.
It was very surprising. It was big game move right off the bat.
They should have done it.
Right. That was the obvious should have, and I think
I think Chloe Marielle, I mean, she was probably a good player, but I don't.
It came down to Michelle. It had to.
Yeah,
it just comes down to Michelle. She
definitely is going to have to bear that grass.
She hit the nail on the head right across. I got that. That was clever.
I thought it was too, I think.
No, but she convinced Will to vote out Mari, who was
and he was really switched in because she didn't need to have what's her face. Hannah.
But she told him Mari's a strong player and Figgy's an easy vote for later. And that worked. It worked for Will.
Why? Because she's an alliance. So, anyways.
But showmances don't always make it, real far into the game. It's difficult to get that far into the game with a showmance or a power couple. I think Boston Rob and Amber, obviously come to mind. They kind of did it first, and I think that's if I was watching Know-It-Alls with Stephen Fishback and Rob Sesternino last night. I think Stephen hit the nail on the head. Boston Rob and Amber, they set the precedent, and that's why couples don't power couples don't make it in this game because
Right.
we know that pairs are dangerous.
And it's interesting because I actually kind of like Boston Rob.
Well, I have nothing against Boston Rob. Boston Rob is a fantastic player. Um, is
Which is something. Okay, so something I've been thinking about because we mentioned Big Brother. Not that this is about Big Brother, but and even last season on Survivor, I was so disappointed with who won, which annoys me because like when Boston Rob and like some of those past seasons, when people won, and even if you didn't like them, you still kind of liked them, or you could see why. But like last season, when Ty didn't win, and I can't even think of the guy's name, but like I was so against it. And this, like with Big Brother, I was equally not the same. So I think they're losing us maybe with the story arch or whatever. Like, or at least me personally, I don't know. I don't know if you feel that way.
Big Brother's
Or,
lost me almost completely. We'll see if I end up watching next summer. I'm boycotting Over the Top this fall.
was it one that you watch online?
Yeah, that's the one you can watch online. It's on right now.
Yeah, I probably won't watch it.
I don't care for it. Were you a Ty fan?
Yeah,
Because
he dominated. He should have. Don't you think? I mean, he was a really dirty player. Got it. Totally.
He was
one of the dirtiest players in some regards, I would say.
Yeah. I think Ty was entertaining in his first couple episodes. He never really won me over. I think he kept
the chicken on the plate. He should have won. Seriously.
He got connected with the villains on the season with Jason and Scott. And that didn't help him.
But the guy who won, I don't know his name. Sheldon?
Michelle won.
Oh, right.
Last season, Survivor. I was Team Aubrey at Final Tribal Council.
I don't know.
Maybe it's just me. I don't think so, but it might be. I thought Aubrey had the more strategic game, the better game of those final three.
Maybe, but it still comes down to the end that like I feel like in the past 2 to 3 years of all these shows, like somehow either I've changed or they're not showing us the whole story or something. Like I have a harder time being convinced of who wins, why they win, and like agreeing. Like even if I don't like them, like sometimes in the past I've been like, oh, I guess they did play a better game.
Yeah. So it's a hard call, and it is up to the jury, and that's why, and that's what we've seen all the time. We've seen Natalie beat Russell Hanson. A lot of people think that he should have won, and he probably should have won his first season. I don't necessarily know about versus villains. I think as far as gameplay, he probably did. He probably should have won.
I could see that. He probably could have.
But I understand. But on the other hand, I understand heroes versus villains. You're playing with a different group of people. A lot of people who played, old school Survivor, where it was a much more social game, and the social player, I think, was the one who won. Um, so we've got some questions um, from Kim from Twitter. Um, so, do you think we'll ever hear from Lucy? Lucy is
Who's Lucy?
exactly. Lucy
Wait,
is
is Lucy the
the
one with the eye problem?
she's
No,
the,
that's
the other she's the other Asian
Jessica.
on Gen X.
Well, she could be one of
We
those.
haven't seen any um, we haven't seen any activity from her whatsoever in the first two episodes.
She could be one of those really quiet ones that, like, after like half the season, really starts playing hard and could totally win. Because she kind of looks tough.
I don't. She looks tough, but I don't know.
Like, that's totally judgmental, just like by appearance. But
no. I see you, but after I don't think this season's story is going to revolve around her at all. I think she may get it. On the way she's going, she's going to get voted out, and we're not going to know anything about her.
you're the one with the spreadsheet. Has she had a confessional or whatever?
No, she hasn't. She has had zero confession. Usually, what happens is in the first episode, at least everybody gets at least one confessional, so that we get a chance to kind of get to know everybody. But we haven't heard anything from Lucy. Another question came in from the same person. Who's your favorite male and your favorite female from each tribe? And let's see.
We haven't talked about Michaela, but I love her snark.
Oh yeah. Michaela is
like, especially in episode 2.
straight shooter Michaela.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go with Hannah and Adam for the millennials. I relate to Adam a lot, as far at least emotionally and mentally. Yeah, he's Adam's. He's a super fan, like myself. He knows what's going on. He knows what you should and shouldn't do. And he was one of the few on episode 1 who didn't want to go out in the ocean and have a party and leave a half-built shelter.
Yeah, I think Adam. We'll see. Adam could be a strong player.
So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
I think if I were actually playing the game, I would probably be most like David. I'm sure I would be paranoid and crazy.
Yeah, it's without being out there, it's almost impossible to say who I would be playing Survivor like, because there are players, of course, that I like and I relate to, like I said, emotionally, but until you get out there, there's no telling how I would end up playing. I could end up being this crazy person that nobody likes and voted out in the first episode. I hope not. What about Gen X? Favorite male and female?
Gen X. Well, I have harder. Sunday, just because I like the name Sunday.
Sunday.
And she's had a pretty good disposition so far, I think.
She has. I think she could be this season.
I could see her sort of being the like sort of the mama figure, you know what I mean? Like,
I totally agree.
Eating,
I could see her sitting at the end, possibly with a younger, stronger male who attached himself to her as the mom figure.
I'm also gonna.
We've seen that a few times.
Yeah. On the Gen X, I'm gonna go for Chris. I think.
Chris.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think because he's strong. He looks strong at least, and he seems to be in competitions so far. And he seems smart. Like he seems really aware of everything. So.
Agreed. Okay. I'm gonna go with as much as I loved Ken and his Transformers reference. I'm gonna go with Brett as my favorite male.
Kind of has a Boston Rob accent. I don't know if he's actually from Boston.
I haven't quite noticed it. It's not that strong. It's not as strong as Boston Rob's.
It's right. I just clicked on it. He's from Dedham, Massachusetts.
And he's got a Celtics Celtics sweatshirt.
And he's a police sergeant. So that's pretty. Wasn't Boston Rob a firefighter?
I don't think so. I thought he was in construction.
Maybe. I don't know.
Jeremy was a firefighter.
Oh, okay. Maybe I've got it.
Maybe that's what we're talking about. And as far as the women go, I'm gonna go with Jessica. Partly because she was one of the first ones to reach out on Twitter, follow back. She's been very involved with the fans on Twitter. So those of you out there, Survivor fans, follow Jessica Lewis. She's really great as a person. She follows back, and I'd like to see her go deep in the game too. We didn't even talk about this whole legacy advantage, that she has. I completely forgot about it.
So many things more important have been happening.
We don't even know anything about it. It's the first time we've seen a quote legacy advantage. We don't know what it is.
Tough one to get so early in the game, too.
And what we know about it is, it will be in the game, regardless of who has it. When the holder is voted out, she has to will it to somebody. She has to give it to somebody.
Publicly?
I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work.
Because that was really I was like, well, so then everybody's going to know about it?
I don't know.
That was weird.
We will see. We will have to see. I want to know more about the legacy advantage. It's got to be something powerful, and it seems like and based on the clue that we have, the one clue that we have that it's going to be used on day 36. It's an advantage on day 36, which can only mean, maybe it's an automatic pass to, to Final Four or Final Three. Would they give somebody something that powerful?
I don't know. That would be a lot.
It may just be an advantage in the immunity challenge, in the next immunity challenge. I wouldn't be surprised if that's all it was.
That'd still be worth it at that point in the game.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. It's just, calling it a legacy advantage and saying, oh, you have this, and if you vote it out, it has to go to somebody else. It seems like it's something that may be a little bit more powerful than that. I don't know. We will see. We will just have to see. Any other thoughts? Prediction for next week. Who's in trouble on both tribes?
Well, I forget, what was the preview?
There's some kind of twist coming up next week.
Oh, that's right, the twist.
That's kind of all we know.
I predicted that they're going to mix it up. I already talked about that.
We're gonna mix it up. And who do you think will go home next week? Give us a prediction.
Okay, so if it's millennials and then they're not mixed up, oh, that's always tough. Let's see here. Millennials, maybe they would single out Zeke for some reason because he's kind of bossy.
I could see that. I could see them targeting Michaela too, just because she's
Yeah, well, she was.
the straight shooter aspect. It only, it's nice. It's kind of nice, but at the same time, it's it can get on people's nerves when you're just being a certain way all the time. So yeah. I could see Michaela being in trouble next week.
Yeah, she was throwing in a lot of shade because she and what's her face, Biggie, clearly two cats. Yeah, two cats just gonna go after each other. So
yeah.
Let's see here. So Gen Xers.
Gen X.
Yeah, it's the same. Maybe David.
David or Paul, I would think. Depending on.
Yeah, because Paul's the weak link.
Yeah, and David's kind of the scrawny guy that doesn't belong up there.
Right.
But David has the idol, so it depends on how safe can the Gen Xers make David feel, and what's David going to do with the idol? I didn't catch that. I heard you say something, but I wasn't.
Well, I said he's so paranoid. I'm sure he would play it.
Yeah.
Like if he thinks going into tribal council.
I don't know if maybe having an idol and having a buddy and kin that may have having a little bit of that confidence boost may make you feel a little safer. Like I've got this idol, I've got this ally.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't actually need to play this team. So, but being comfortable in Survivor is not something you want to be.
Yeah. No, if that alliance works out, though, if they make it another week, I think that could be a real game changer for David.
I agree.
Like if that works out, because otherwise he was a sinking ship. If they had gone back to tribal council again,
he would have been gone.
Yeah, I think he was probably most likely to have been voted out.
Yeah. All right, so I think we are done for the night. It's 11:45, so we're gonna. I think that's a good show for tonight. Good opening show. I'm looking forward to next week. Guys, remember, clothing is always optional, but nudity is never required around here. So we will see you next week.